Weapon kits are my favorite part about Splatoon 3, and we're gonna get a ton more of them with the second and third kits releasing in the future. So today I want to predict the second kit for every single weapon. I'm gonna be assuming that all subs and specials are basically balanced, so stuff like Ultra Stamp isn't here to screw over a weapon, but yes, nothing's gonna get point sensor anyway. I'm also gonna try to look at this from a balanced perspective, meaning using things from the previous kits it's had before if it makes sense, or making new kits that are based off of something that works for the weapon, with a little bit of my own ideas thrown in. This is the kit video I'm the most happy with, and hey, hopefully it'll age well. We'll have to see in the future. Subscribe if you enjoy it, and let's get right into it. For the alternate kit of the Sploosh-O-Matic, I think Splat Bomb and Trizooka would be perfect for it. Not only was this an old combo that it had in the Sploosh 7 in Splatoon 1, but it's also the opposite of the first one, which was best at dealing with things in close range, while this one gives more versatility to deal with things at a distance. So while the first kit of Junior has been standard in both games, it's clear that the devs really like doing wacky alternate kits with this thing. In Splatoon 2 it had a kit based around its ability to spam a ton of paint and double auto bomb, another one that was based around a torpedo bubble combo that was exclusive to it, and in Splatoon 1 it both had Disruptor and Echolocator to inflict multiple status effects upon enemies. The bubble combo doesn't really exist, and the Inkstorm spam was absolutely terrible, so I went with the Splatoon 1 alternate kit type. I think it would be a little bit better in this game since the Wave Breaker does damage, but in general both the sub and special should help it fight to some degree, and I think it would be an interesting niche at the very least. Aerosprays had a mixture of weird aggressive stuff from Kraken and Inkzooka to odd subs that don't really work for it like Inkmine and Sprinkler, but throughout all the chaos, the main thing that has stuck is Burst Bomb. And well, since we already saw Booyah Bomb being used for it in the Splatoon 3 Direct, and that combo just worked so well for it already in Splatoon 2, I feel like keeping that kit but putting it on the gold one would make the most sense. The first kit of Splash seems to be what the most iconic kit for that weapon would be, the Burst Bomb paired with an aggressive special, and while that leaves a Bomb Rush and a Suction Bomb remaining, I don't think either of those work super well for this weapon, so I'm gonna give it a brand new kit. I think Torpedo would be interesting as it gives it options to deal with more longer range threats due to the extra throwing range, but still gives it some burst bomb utility when rolled. And Zipcaster would be amazing for it compared to any other shooter due to its perfect accuracy, and it did have this in the second trailer. So I think this would be a perfect kit to cover more longer range stages where this weapon can struggle. Splattershot being an iconic weapon was really hard to choose from. I ruled out the burst bomb pretty easily because it seems like they don't want to use that anymore, and I think burst bomb is much more iconic with Splash, especially now that it's its default kit. This means it would be ideal to go with something like a Kensa Shot or Wasabi Splattershot that's a more supportive kit, but I think that would be better for a third kit. Definitely the Wasabi vibe though, that weapon looks so cool. So what if we just had the most iconic kits from both Tenatechs in previous games in one game? That would be super cool, and I think the Inkjet would give enough variance to where this would have a unique and fun playstyle. 52's alternate kits have always seemed to lean into the mobility to some degree with both a curling bomb and a seeker, but the specials have always been something that didn't really fit for it quite well and were more midline style. So instead, let's give it a fully aggressive one, curling bomb to move in, and Reef Slider to also move in. While this playstyle would be a bit linear, I think it offers the opposite of what the normal 52 does, being stationary and holding an area very well, which would give some nice differences to the 52 player base. And Zap has had a few variances on its different kits, but a common theme has been location, with the Echolocator in Splatoon 1 and the Autobomb Antenna Missiles in Splatoon 2. I think Autobomb Wave would be a really cool combo, as both allow more damage to help the weapon and a high amount of location, which would give it a unique effect in a team, while not being able to apply as much status effects as something like the Custom Junior we listed previously or have as high output. While I was tempted to go with the Forge Splattershot Pro's Suction Bomb and uniquely aggressive special, I think the Kensa Splattershot Pro was just such a perfect kit for this weapon and created a really fun playstyle. Its reputation was ruined a bit by MPU damage up, but with that gone, I think this is a good opportunity to bring the kit back and let people see how amazing it is for the Splattershot Pro. 96 Deco has always come with a wall, which is pretty iconic for the weapon, but the choice of special came down to which aggressive one would be best for it, since that's typically what that kit goes with. I decided to give it Ultra Stamp, a fair reminder that this list is not about how good the specials are right now, but how good they would be if the specials were all about even. And Ultra Stamp gives you a way to deal clear DPS and fight well up close, which could be very useful for the weapon since it doesn't really do either of those things quite well. So Jet would obviously get its iconic Burst Bomb back, but I'm not really keen on giving it a special it can use at a safe distance like the Ink Strike Antenna Missile, since it's led to a lot of spam. Instead, since we have a healthy supportive kit already, I want to give a really aggressive one that can still have some amount of help protecting its team, so let's introduce it to the Crab Tank. A bit of extra survivability, combos with the sub-weapon, damage per second, which is something it can struggle with a little bit, and the ability to hit around corners. This would make Jet Sculpture the ultimate jack-of-all-trades backliner that could be more aggressive. Next up are the semi-automatics. L3 is another one to obviously get Burst Bomb since it's had it in both games and is very iconic to the weapon. However, we have unique aggressive options with the Ultra Stamp, Inkjet, and Kraken, and I think Ultra Stamp is the best bet here. This is the closest us to a middle ground between the three, since the stamp can be used to affect people at a distance, but is primarily up close, which I think fits for this weapon slightly better than the other two. Let's be honest, most of H3's previous kits have been a complete miss. Stuff like Inkzuka was somewhat interesting for it in the past, but this weapon really needs stuff to help it stand in place and not die. And well, there's one iconic version of the H3 that's been so good they've had it in both games, even if it didn't quite work out in the second, which is of course its Cherry kit. Normally I stray from giving a survivability sub and special to the main weapon, but H3 is so slow and supportive that I think it works out fine here, and Big Bubbler and Splash Wall both have clear vulnerabilities that can be exploited, so I think this would be really healthy and strong for the weapon. Squeezer, of course, does not have a lot of previous kits to reference, but I really liked its Splat Bomb Bubble Blower. If we could get rid of the combo and have it actually be a supportive special hybrid, I think it would be a really healthy kit, and well, Big Bubbler already is that, so that's what we're gonna do. This would definitely be less stationary than something like the Cherry that I mentioned previously, and be able to use the Big Bubbler more for itself often, but I think this would be a really interesting playstyle for it, as it would have to alternate between how often it uses the special aggressively and with its teeth. While Carbon may have an iconic kit, it also had Seeker and Seeker Rush, which is a super interesting kit for— no, it wasn't. We're giving it Burst Bomb Trizuka. It will be fine, please. It's not that bad. It has to work for its special, which means it's not going to be feeding if it wants to get Zuka anyway. Now listen, I know a large population of roller players love Beacon on this weapon, and I get it, but I'm gonna give it to a different roller, so bear with me for this one. We're not gonna give it a returning sub either though, because the bombs didn't work great for it, and Wall was not a good option, especially with the 220p Zuka. How is this kit real, man? Anyway, we're gonna give it Torpedo. This can paint the weapon's feet, be used to poke weapons like chargers that can deal with it well at a distance, and of course can give enemies something to shoot at while you run at them. Reef Slider, on the other hand, will be a more obvious pick, as it can function a lot like the Kraken or Baller in the previous games, and Roller can reliably combo with the 60 damage middle hit quite easily. Dynamo has had a bunch of different weird stuff in its kits, and not a lot of it I really like, but the closest thing I found interesting was the Seeker on the Tempered Dynamo in Splatoon 1. I think exchanging this for the Fizzy Bomb could be really cool for it, since it gives it more painting range while still keeping the ability to use it as a mobility option, even if it's not as good as something like Curling. And since we've already given it a potential combo and mobility sub, let's lean into that aggressive potential with the Crab Tank to help survivability and put pressure at a distance, while of course giving it tools like damage per second that it doesn't have currently. For Flingza, I won't really be drawing any inspiration from the stuff that didn't make it into its current kit, but instead we're going to be making something entirely new. This is the roller I think Beacon works a lot better on, since its vertical flick can deal with people at a distance, and I wanted to give it Ink Vacuum. This would work great at the range the weapon's at, give it survivability tools but allow it to be a support, and more importantly, you could use the Beacon to give people jumps in and then protect them with the vacuum for a very niche but cool combo on something like a tower. Swiffer has typically gotten one supportive kit and one aggressive kit, and since we already have the supportive one, I think it's better to go into that category. Suction Bomb makes a lot of sense and would be a returning sub, but instead of something like an Inkjet or Kraken, why don't we give it a brand new option, the Zipcaster. Since this weapon could charge full speed in the air, it could take advantage of it better than most chargers, and would be really cool for unique and aggressive plays. I actually kind of liked the custom GooTuber kit in Splatoon 2, it was just overshadowed by Swiffer, but now that we just gave it a different special, we can give it an upgraded version of the Curling Bomb being Fizzy, and the Inkjet can come back to it, now being a unique option for this weapon. Bamboo's had a lot of interesting sub and special combinations before, from Fizzy Bomb, Bubble Blower, Toxic Mist, Tenta Missiles, but there's one kit that I feel like was oddly forgotten for how cool it was. The Splatoon 1 Bamboo Mach 3 with Burst Bomb and Ink Strike, and I think it's time more than ever for that kit to come back in the game without damage up, so Burst Bomb and triple Ink Strike for the ultimate Bamboo kit. Splat Charger's weakest mode is Zones right now, and one of its most iconic kits was the Fire Fin from Splatoon 2, so this creates an easy inspiration since Wall was already a sub that's happened twice. Triple Ink Strike makes sense as a Bomb Rush substitute, and would be especially good with the Splash Wall since you can protect yourself while you're throwing strikes. Alright, this was the thumbnail one. I know some of you skipped right here for this, so let me give you an explanation. The normal E-Liter kit is already so good as your standard one that I decided to give it a totally weird niche one that could be useful for specific situations. The angle shooter is a bit easier to make sense of. Obviously the location and damage could be helpful at a distance, but mainly this is a gimmick that could allow you to kill someone with a partial charge by comboing it with the sub weapon afterward. Obviously it's no Splatoon 1 Burst Bomb, but it would have some unique uses. Zipcaster is essentially trying to be Widow Grapple Hook, and I've heard a lot of people say that you actually won't be able to get a lot of shots off with this weapon, but that's not entirely true. Zipcaster functions based off the main weapon's ink tank. The arm uses basically nothing and the duration is quite long, and on top of that, Inksaver main does actually stack with Zipcaster, which means it would help if you run it for E-Liter normally, which is quite common. Zipcaster would allow you to take extremely extremely weird angles and take use of map geometry no other weapon can, such as these examples here, and I think it would be super cool for the weapon, and at the very least, this would be incredibly fun. And obviously, on top of that, being able to zip away when you're being rushed could give you an option to protect yourself and snipe them at a distance, or have your teammates take care of them before you recall. And because I made it 180p, this thing would get a pretty high amount of zip casters to have that as an option. Let me know if you guys actually like this kit or not, because it's definitely controversial. Bucket has a ton of different good specials to go off of, like the Kraken, Baller, Inkzooka, and Burst Bomb Rush, but of course, we all know which sub-weapon you guys really want back, your Burst Bomb. If it were purely custom kits, I would be fine with it, but considering we're doing set kits and this is the devs making them, I'm gonna go with a close compromise and give you Torpedo. This does have the same combo and feat painting potential as Burst Bomb, and gives it some brand new utility to poke weapons at a distance. And on top of that, Reef Slider would be the perfect mixture of Kraken and Baller that it's had in the previous games, giving it survivability, a way in, and reliable combos with the outside explosion hit. So I think Tri-Slosher has potential to be a massive throwback to not only its most iconic kit in Splatoon 2, but its old look, with the Tri-Slosher Nouveau retaining the old look it had in Splatoon 2 with Burst Bomb and Big Bubbler. Burst isn't too broken with it since you have to hit a direct hit to combo completely, and the Big Bubble would be much more healthy than the Ink Armor for it since it has a bit more cooldown and would force you to stay grounded to deploy it, something Bucket struggle with. But of course would still be very good to protect it and give it that nice Slayer support hybrid that it had in that game. Machine has had a bit of passive kits before with some bombs and bomb rushes, but I think its most interesting kit is an old Splatoon 1 one with Point Sensor and Inkzooka. With the brand new Angle Shooter being good at comboing with the sloshing machine and the location being especially useful for this weapon, I think it would be interesting to bring this kit back with that and the Tri-Zooka to give it a more aggressive option, and with 190p it could give the Zooka a little bit easier to help compete with its Kensa kit. Normal kit. I think Explosher could use an entirely new kit to help it in other modes, and this has to be one of my favorites. Please put it in the game. Squid Beacon could help give jumps back in for more aggressive teams that Expo likes to play with, and locate people near you for the weapon to help defend itself, while Wavebreaker of course has the damage and location combos that are amazing for this weapon. Blob already basically has a hybrid of its Splatoon 2 kit, so I want to give it something more akin to the support route. I think Ink Mine would be interesting as both the sub and the main weapon are about trapping people, and of course the damage and location are useful for comboing with the weapon. Tacticooler would definitely be better with more aggressive comps, but I think this allows Blob to really go in more, which is something we have seen with a bit of Blob players before, and I think this would enhance that playstyle further. This is a kit to enhance more aggressive and supportive Blob plays, being entirely unique from the tools it's had before. Mini Splatling has another obvious kit reference, being the Zinc Mini from Splatoon 1, as it was one of the first weapons in an established meta to be ran 2 of and be considered dominant. I think that the combo would be even more healthy in this game with Toxic Mist instead of Disruptor to slow people down, which pairs well with the mini speed, and Big Bubbler also being nice for it with how easily it can strafe in and around the shield. Heavy Splatlings had Sprinkler, Splash Wall, and Point Sensor repeated throughout the games consistently, but it's had a ton of different special weapons, from Killer Whale, Booyah Bomb, Stingray, Bubble Blower, Kraken. There's a bunch of them, and I think I have the right combo. I wanted to go with a complete anti-charger kit for this weapon, since it's a really difficult matchup for it, so it'll keep the Splash Wall to help protect itself that the Deco kit has always had, but be paired with the Killer Whale 5.1, something that can move chargers at a distance while you can be free to push forward. Hydra is a weapon that both wants a deployable sub and a special that can help deal with longer range threats and protect itself, and it's actually had a kit that does both of those things before in Splatoon 1. We're going to be bringing back the custom Hydra from that game, with Sprinkler since it can help you move a little bit and help with your paint output, and Big Bubbler to protect yourself for quite a long period of time and the objective you might be on to allow you to rain fire even when stuff like chargers are patrolling the map. Ballpoint's most iconic kit by far was the Ballpoint Nouveau with Beacon and Inkstorm, and Beacon of course is a staple of this weapon that absolutely should stay, but with the Storm put on Nautilus, I think it's time to do a better fit, the Tacticooler. This would allow the weapon to really push aggressive comps to their maximum potential, and especially with Beacons being able to provide a jump when all 4 players going with the Tacticooler could be extremely valuable in this weapon. For the Nautilus, I wanted to lean into the more aggressive potential that the Gold Knot did in Splatoon 2, so Tri-Zooka would be an even better fit than the Inkjet, being great for taking out things like chargers at a distance, while being even more safe than something like Inkjet. Mine is definitely a more odd pick, but the weapon has decent enough painting range to manage without a bomb, and with the charge it can't combo off one super well anyway, so this could help hold key areas or potentially save it when it's using its Trizooka. Mine hasn't really worked out for Luna between either of the two games, so instead we're going to be going with Fizzy Bomb, what they gave it at the end of Splatoon 2, which works great for both mobility and combo potential. We'll be pairing this with the Trizooka, an old special weapon that it used to have back in Splatoon 1 that would have great synergy with the sub-weapon itself and lead to a much more healthy kit than the Kenta in Splatoon 2 that was a bit too pain spammy with Inkstorm. While the prospect of a returning Toxic Mist, Killer Whale, and I guess Booyah Bomb being the closest thing for Splashdown right now would be tempting, I really think the better pick for Blaster is the custom kit it had in Splatoon 2. Something about both the ability to scout and find enemies immediately with the Auto Bomb and have longer distance threats with the Inkjet was a scary combination for this weapon that I really like to watch. Range Blaster's up, and of course, I want to reference the Splatoon 1 CRB, as Splatoon 2 CRB was terrible, and the Grim passive kit, while an interesting option, is something we kinda already have done well with the vanilla kit, as the Suction and Wave are quite nice for that playstyle. Ideally, I'd love Zipcaster on this thing, but if we're trying to build the identity close to Splatoon 1 CRB, then Ultra Stamp is the better pick for it. This still would be really nice for the weapon if it was actually good though, since it gives it the ability to do quick damage per second, defend itself up close, and has a throw option for just the coolest of plays. For Clash Blaster's kit, I would just like to tell you all a little story. On March 8th, 2018, version 3.0 trailer happened, and the Splatoon community saw something that I would never forget. The amount of panic and hype from people who hated and liked Clash Blaster was one of the best things I have ever experienced, and honestly, Clash got robbed and deserves to get this Burst Bomb back. It'd be annoying to get used to, but it would be a very fun kit, and I think it wouldn't be broken on it or anything. I decided to go with Killer Whale for the special to try to be somewhat similar to the Stingray it had on its first kit that would also help it get in. Rapids had some cool kits before, but only one has really played into the strengths of this weapon as the more mobile of the two Rapids, which is the Crapid, or Kenta Rapid kit, with torpedo combos and a baller to stay alive. In Splatoon 3, it's time to update the Crapid to the Crab Pid. This new special could come with the same functionality as Baller, but also some new ones to help enhance the playstyle even further, making this the most fun Crapid we've ever had. Rapid Pros also had some pretty interesting kits, but I want to change it up a little bit. I think Beacon would be really cool for letting its teammates get back in and would fit super well with the weapon's playstyle, and Tenna Missiles would give it the ability to do nice chip damage to combo with the weapon and see it move longer distance threats. Ink Brush is definitely due to have another staying alive and annoying you in the backline kit, since its first kit doesn't really do that, and I think Inkmine already worked amazing for that in Splatoon 2, but I want to give it Reef Slider for the special. It's had both Kraken and Baller before, and this is the perfect hybrid, giving it a way to move into the backline, survive back there, and just overall be a total nuisance. As for Octobrush, the Auto Bomb it got in Splatoon 2 was one of the best sub-weapons for it since it's a little bit cheaper than the others, but I think an even better special for it would be Inkstorm. This would give it a variance in its playstyle compared to the first kit, and especially cover it in something like Splat Zones that it's a bit weaker at right now, allowing more versatility for the weapon than it's had in its previous options throughout the past two games. For Dapple Nuvo, I wanted to completely overhaul its kit to give it tools to deal with longer range options, so Splat Bomb and Inkjet is what I went with here, since it gives it a lethal threat and the ability to poke at unique angles with the special. This means for the normal dually, I also took a different route compared to the end parry this time around. I decided to give it the Burst Bomb it had on its normal kit, as I like the synergy with that, but went with Tacticooler to give it a more supportive aggressive niche. This would have a unique playstyle, and I've been wanting to see one of the dualies truly fill that support role, and I think this is the best one for it. Since dually squelchers have become a lot more ink hungry over the history of Splatoon 2, I think Auto Bomb would be a great sub-weapon for it that would give it poking capability without using too much of its ink tank. And I decided to go with Killer Whale for the special as an old throwback to the Splatoon 1 dual squelcher, since I think it also fits this weapon pretty well with its good mobility to take advantage of the displacement the special provides. Glooga's default kit is a really tricky one to top, but if I had to try, I think the Fizzy Bomb from the Kenta kit fit quite nicely for it, but it needs to be a full-on support with that sub-weapon. And so, to help it set up nature, I decided to give it Big Bubbler, as I think this would be exceptional paired with Glooga and could give it a unique role in team comps. And finally, for the Tetra, I wanted to give it just pure mobility. It doesn't struggle to get in too much, so I wanted to try Curling Bomb just so it could set up to use its 4 rolls even deeper into enemy territory, and of course, Zipcaster on the most mobile dually just makes way too much sense. I think Brella is a perfect candidate to fit a support role. Torpedo would be similar enough to the Auto Bomb it had previously, but with less waiting frames and the potential to tank an extra hit to some degree degree to help the Brella get a shot off while they shoot the torpedo. Additionally, Ink Vacuum works with run speed, which Brella often uses, and it would be great in order to tank for teammates, meaning the sub, special, and main weapon all provide protection for allies. Since Tint already has a supportive kit, we're gonna go with the opposite for the more aggressive one. I think Curling Bomb could give mobility to a weapon that normally is not fast at all and has good synergy with the special of Ultra Stamp, which worked quite well with it in Splatoon 2. The combo of a Rush Mode Stamp plus the Tent Shield can just tank so much damage since the Stamp can eat bombs, and that's great for specific situations. Undercover is gonna borrow its special from Brella in Splatoon 1 with Ink Storm and the sub-weapon of Burst Bomb. Both of these are made to give it extra damage and painting capability that can help it out a ton, meaning it's way more flexible and can get its shield back more often. Plus, it's also the special we saw it using in the Direct. For the Tri-Stringer, I think a Splash Wall could do a great job to keep itself alive and position more aggressively against stuff like Charger. While the Wave Breaker could be useful since this weapon can hit over corners, and with the explosions it's not that unreliable, giving it a way to pressure people around corners. This kit would also be a throwback to the Bento Charger from Splatoon 1. And for the Reflux, I decided to give it Auto Bomb as a good poking and supportive tool, and the Booyah Bomb that could keep itself alive while still playing that support role, giving it a bit more flexibility than its default kit. Finally, for the Splatanas, the normal Wiper is quite mobile, and I think Fizzy could play well into that with its trail, while giving it a better poke than Torpedo at a distance since it doesn't have to worry about being shot down. And to tie into that, Trizuka could be even better for dealing with the longer range threats that this weapon faces. And last but certainly not least is the Splatana Stamper. I think Splat Bomb would be great for the combo threat considering the Charge Slash does 70 damage, and Crab Tank could keep it alive while allowing it to be more versatile, a trait that's exceptionally powerful with this weapon. And that is finally all the kits. I think I found a good balance between what I want, what I think the devs would put on it, and what it's had previously. Let me know what you guys think though, and what your hopes are for kits in the future, and let's see how many of these age well. I'll see you guys next time.